For DML after insert trigger, we have taken in TBL fruit table. Here the fields are fruit ID, fruit name, fruit price. We have taken the records like apple say 70 rupees, then papaya 35 rupees. So like this, there may be record in table fruit. If we insert any record in this fruit table, after inserting record, the trigger must be fired and another entry will be saved in TBL fruit audit table, which contains fields audit ID, fruit name, fruit price, username, audit ID. For DML after insert trigger, we are using TBL fruit table having fields fruit ID, fruit name, fruit price. Then first we create this table. Here our table is created. Then we insert these two records. Now we create TBL fruit audit. Here TBL fruit audit table contains columns audit ID, fruit name, fruit price, username, action date. Our fruit audit table is created. These are all the columns. We can create DML after insert trigger in this way. Create trigger name is trigger insert after, then on table name, this is table TBL fruit, then which event we want to fire the trigger after inserting any record in TBL fruit. So this is the event, then as begin, and this is statement to show end user. After insert trigger fired end. If we execute this, our trigger is created. We can see here in triggers trigger insert after. So now we can check how trigger works. If we insert this record, we can see after insert trigger fired and one row affected. Here we can say that select star from inserted. Inserted is a magic table. When this trigger fired, at that time the same record is inserted into this table, inserted table. This is the magic table or imaginary table. So in this table also the entry is inserted. So if we see, we have made some changes, so we can alter the trigger. if we insert any another row, if we insert another record, then we can see this is the same entry and same fields here: fruit id, fruit name, fruit price, and the entry is shown from inserted table. Now we have seen how same record is inserted into inserted table. Now we want to save the record in TBL fruit audit table. So first we drop the trigger with drop trigger name. You can see here. Now trigger is dropped. Now we create the trigger again, and here we have taken variable id, name, price. We first declare these variables here, and we taken id from inserted table and store in this id variable. We have taken fruit name inserted table and store in this name variable, and we have taken food price from inserted table and stored in price variable. After that we insert the table these variables: id, name, price, username, and current date and time. Then print statement. If we execute this trigger, now trigger is created. We can see trigger is created now again. Here there are 4 records. Now we insert new record. Here one row affected after insert trigger fired, one row affected. This is the row which is inserted into TBL fruit table, and this is the row which is inserted into TBL fruit audit table, and this is the print message. When we see both the tables, here we can see new record, and here also new record inserted into. This is the ID of new record. This same ID inserted into TBL fruit audit table. Then fruit name, then fruit price, then username, then action date. This is the current date and time. In this way, when after insert triggered is fired, at that time the same entry which is inserted into TBL fruit table, that same entry inserted into TBL fruit audit table. Now we can see fruit table and fruit audit table. In both tables, record is added. Here we can also roll back transaction after. Now we execute this. If we try to add new record, you cannot insert record and the transaction ended in the trigger. The batch has been aborted. Now we cannot add any or insert any record. In this way, we can restrict any user from inserting record into the table. Now any user cannot insert record into the table fruit table, and also it is not inserted into the inserted table and not insert into the TBL fruit audit table. If we see here, the entry of orange is not inserted into table TBL fruit and not inserted into TBL fruit audit. In this way, new record is not inserted into both the tables. Like uh, after insert trigger, we can create after delete trigger. Here create trigger, trigger delete after, then on table fruit, TBL fruit after delete. Here after delete. Then is here there was inserted imaginary table, or there was inserted magic table. Now here there is, now here magic table is deleted. So here we mentioned select id from fruit id from deleted, select name is equal to fruit name from deleted, select price is equal to fruit price from deleted. Now this sentence is same. After here after delete trigger is fired. If we execute here, we can see trigger delete after created. If we delete this banana, delete from TBL fruit where fruit id is equal to 5. One row affected after delete trigger fired, one row affected. So here it is deleted from TBL fruit. It is now after delete trigger fired and one row affected. This entry is stored in TBL audit table. If we see here, here the record is deleted from fruit table, but here we see the same entry. So to differentiate both the entries, we can give here action name also. Now we drop the drop table fruit audit, and we have taken this column action type in new table. We can alter also, but here we have dropped the table and we have taken action type column in our table. So if we see here, now there are no any entry and new column is inserted. We alter delete after trigger. Here we have given action name delete, and we execute this. Similarly, we alter insert after trigger. Here we have given action name insert, and we alter and execute this trigger. This is also executed. Now if we see here, we can see 4 records in TBL fruit, and here no record in TBL fruit audit table, because we have dropped the TBL fruit audit table and then we have created new table with action type column. If we insert this record, we can see one row affected after insert trigger fired, one row affect. If we see here, orange added here, orange added here, id 6, fruit id 6, and action type insert. If we delete this record, delete from table fruit where fruit id is equal to 6, one row affected after delete trigger fired. Now after delete trigger fired and one row affected, if we see here, we can see here the record of orange deleted from tbl fruit, and here or entry is saved in audit tbl audit table, and here action is delete. Now action is delete. First action was insert, now action is delete. If we delete here grapes, now one row after delete trigger fired, one row affected. If we see here, grapes deleted, then id 4 grapes, and action delete, time is all the things are present, and here we can see action type is delete. So that's all for DML triggers, DML after insert trigger and DML after delete trigger. Thanks for watching.